And a very good morning to you, Grenada, and the rest of the world. Happy Monday. Yes, my dear friends, happy Monday. Today happens to be 22nd day of the month. Feeling a little bit awkward here this morning because I'm not wearing my hat. You noticed? We, ever since we began doing this program, I've had three main objectives. One, to inform you. Two, educate you. And three, probably the least of those priorities, entertain you. I always hope at the end of the program that when you walk away feeling, I've actually learned something here from the program this morning. And I'm hoping that today will be one of those days. So let's get right down to brass tacks. Today, pilgrims, we're going to be talking about what happens when your computer is hacked. You've heard that term? Hacked? Boy, oh boy, oh boy, there's a lot of that going on. A lot. And we're going to watch a piece this morning which will teach you a little bit about hacking. Big business, really big business. Sometimes if you really sit and think about the state that our world is in, scares the stuffing out of you, doesn't it? Yeah? So yeah, that's one of the things we're going to do. Another thing we're going to do is ask you the question, did you know that soursop is a cancer killer? Yeah? Yeah, I'm sure most of you have heard some talk about that because there's been an awful lot said about that in recent times. We'll take a look. We also have the National Report for you, Friday's edition. And finally, we're going to play you an excerpt from one of the segments we did yesterday, on yesterday's edition of Sundays with George Grant. And it's a piece where the Public Workers Union reacts to Prime Minister Mitchell on the cellgate comments which he made in Montreal a couple of Fridays ago, okay? Before I start firing up stuff here, let me say good morning to some of you folks out there. I see that Anthea, tell me the truth. You're on vacation, right? I'm seeing a lot of you lately. Makes me very happy, but I'm seeing a lot of you. Thank you so much for joining us. Bernard Gilbert saying good morning, and yeah. Arthur Langine says, you're looking beautiful without the headpiece. Beautiful? You want to start spreading rumors, guy? Knock it off. Thanks anyway. Very kind of you, Arthur. Fitzroy is saying good morning. Fitzroy Adams, Donna Joseph, sending blessings to everybody. And Ryan Jabon says, good day and a blessed Monday to you. Love the clean cut and the royal blue look. Yes, soursop is very medicinal since I was a boy in Grenada. You know, boy, I love soursop. But preparing it has sort of kept me away. I grew up on that thing, a lot of it. Arthur Langine says, good morning, Brother George. My heart goes out to the people in Marin who lost, or I guess he means Marion, who lost their homes. Yeah? Okay, so there you have it. Now, let's get down to business. 4 minutes after the hour. When some of us talk about being hacked, there are some people out there who refer to us as alarmists, paranoid, weird, or whatever. Truth of the matter is, my dear friends, hacking is big business. So big There is actually a hacking convention for hackers in the United States. Don't believe me? Watch this. Well, where is this? Huh? Oh my goodness. Mr. This has disappeared. That's interesting. Watched this just a little while ago, but not there. Okie dokie. So, we're gonna have to we're going to have to show you that some other time, all right? And boy, I do hope that that's not an indication of things to come this morning. So, let's move on to our next little piece here. You probably already heard that soursop is apparently a miracle drug, which, it is alleged, can cure cancer. It's a fruit which I have loved all of my life, but sadly, haven't used as much of it as I probably should. Take a look at this video, and as you do, think about whether we are doing all that we can to capitalize on the tons of soursop that we have in this country. Check it out. Hello? Uh-huh. It's gonna be one of those days, eh? Well, it's gonna be one of those days. Yeah. I just felt on top of the world this morning. And, well, finding out that life is not always what you expected. Just let me try this and see if this works.
Mr. Watts, wait. Why are you removing my sign?
Sorry, Larry, but you can't put the sign on an electricity pole. That is an accident waiting to happen.
Mr. Watts, man, I just finished this new house. I need to put up a sign so that people would know that the apartment is for rent. Why can't I put my sign on the pole?
Larry, you should know better. Think about it. Nails, staples, glue, and signs make it difficult for linesmen to quickly and safely climb poles, and it can delay their response time when there is an emergency. These objects can prevent linesmen responding as quickly as they should in an emergency.
You know, I've never thought about those things. But you're absolutely right.
On top of that, Larry, your sign was covering the pole identification number. What if someone needed to report a fault? The pole number tells Grenlec exactly where the problem is and allows them to respond faster.
Whoa, I really didn't consider all these things, you know. Come, let me help you take this down.
Remember, be safe, be smart. No more signs, banners, or posters on electricity poles.
Grenlec, energizing our Grenada.
Studying too hard about back-to-school expenses? Co-op Bank is making back to school as easy as 1, 2, 3. Enjoy competitive interest rates, affordable monthly payments, speedy decisions on applications. Come in and apply today.
Welcome home.
You don't know how many hurricanes will be coming this season, so you need to be prepared. At Hubbard's Hardware and Building Supply departments and the Food Fair supermarkets, everything from canned foods, flashlights and batteries, to plywood, tarpaulin, lanterns, roof repair kits, water tanks, etc. are available. For over 90 years, we've helped you prepare for and recover from storms. Hubbard's Hardware, Food Fair supermarkets, and the Grenadian General Insurance, an integral part of your hurricane preparedness plan.
All right, Okay, yeah. It's going to be an interesting morning. Let me get back here to Facebook for just a minute. Ryan says, Nanale's soursop smoothie. Boy, yeah, I love those soursop smoothies with some condensed milk. Stuff to die for, man. He also goes on to say, computer hacking is an international way of life. You're absolutely right about that, Ryan. Absolutely right. And believe me, as time goes on, and you'll find that more and more people are learning how to do that stuff, we got a crazy future ahead of us because people are using that for all sorts of evil things. Anthea Rello says, Ryan, I saw soursop on sale at the farmer's market, $8.99 a pound. Problem was, they didn't look full. Yeah? I guess somebody was rushing to get that stuff to market, eh? And she also goes on to say, George, like you in New York, what's with the blackout? No, it's not. It's not a blackout. I think there's probably a problem. I don't think I know this has nothing to do with the internet. I think this is something to do with the two files that we pulled up. Donna Joseph says, George, those thieves stressing out farmers, thieving soursop and selling it for nothing. I'm not surprised to hear that at all. You know something else I noticed over the past few days? If you move around the city here, you'll see that there's a lot of corn, man, corn in season. Every little nook and cranny on the streets, yeah, people are selling their roast corn. I wish somebody would sell the boiled corn. I love the roast corn, but I wish somebody would set up a little booth somewhere where they did some nice boiled corn, yeah, with bell peppers and, stuff like that. Woo, ooh. John Bruno is saying good morning. Hello there, John. How are you? Ryan says he's responding to Anthea here. He says, I guess the Atlanta, Georgia prices are sky high, but not too bad in Florida. Hispanic green grocers. Okay. I have 2 big soursop trees in my Florida back garden, but despite blossoms, I can't get them to fruit. Sorry for you, Ryan. But if and when you do, I think you know my address. Send some stuff down. Nestle's condensed milk and all, everything, all right? Okay, folks, take another quick little break here, and we'll come back with Friday's edition of the National Report.
Conveniently located in the Grand Anne Shopping Center, for over 40 years, Food Fair has provided quality service at affordable prices. Now, grocery shopping is made easier and more convenient from the Food Fair web store.
Hey, babe. Listen, I need you to go down to Food Fair to get some groceries.
All right, no problem. Right away.
Thanks, babe. What are you doing? You're supposed to be going Food Fair to get a grocery, man.
I am, but didn't you know you can order your groceries online from the Food Fair web store?
Are you serious?
Of course. All you have to do is just to log on to www.foodfair.gd with credit card in hand, and with an order of $100 or more, Food Fair granadas will deliver up to 3 miles away. And you don't even have to worry about your information, Their safety measures are excellent.
So hold on. You just order online and Food Fair will deliver to you?
Yep.
Oh, baby, better hurry up and order, man.
I already did. They should be here any minute now.
Enjoy easy online shopping anytime from your home or office from the Food Fair web store. Food Fair, where you can fill your baskets without emptying your pockets.
Juve chocolates, cocoa nibs, and cocoa balls from Diamond Estate Grenada are now available at Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, Amazon.co.uk, and GrenadaMarket.com. Try the sensational touch of nutmeg and a touch of ginger chocolates, 75% dark and rich, 100% pure cocoa, and their 60% dark and sweet chocolate bars today. Amazon Prime members enjoy free shipping on these orders in the USA, Canada, and Europe. GrenadaMarket.com, When you can't come to the island, the products of the island will come to you.
Easy living should be convenient. With Grenlec, it is. Dial 237 for any Grenlec department, or for customer service, streetlight outages, or if it's unsafe to trim a tree near a power line. For streetlights and service issues, please note the pole number. From just about anywhere, you can also check your bill balance and other account information. Just keep your Grenlec access number handy. Dial 237 for Grenlec. It's that easy. Grenlec, energizing our Grenada.
Yeah. Yeah. Whew. Folks, don't know what the heck's going on this morning, but the gremlins are at work, testing Georgie's patience. Would you believe? Not only did we not have the piece for you about, the hacking of computers and the piece about soursop, but I'll tell you, we don't even have the GIS report, the national report. There it is. But for some reason, she ain't playing for you this morning. Something went wrong overnight, because I played these things last night and they were fine. John Bruno says, since we now know that soursop has many health benefits, we should be looking into extracting and producing products with a higher end value. We have to stop being producers of cheap raw materials. So yeah, John, you're absolutely right. Not just the soursop, but mangoes. It is pathetic to drive around the outer parishes and see the street just littered with mangoes. And I remember some time ago in Montreal, I went into a market, had a craving for mangoes, and I was just ecstatic when I saw mangoes for sale. There was something that looked a lot like a Julie mango. I'm a big fan of Ceylon mangoes, okay? But I saw something that looked like Julie, which is really not bad. And I thought, hey, yeah, let me get a couple of these. Ooh! The taste was nowhere comparable to what you and I refer to as Julie mangoes here. I like Ceylon because you put that in your mouth and it just melts. Just melts. Anyway, so that's the situation we're faced with this morning. Gremlins at work. Benedict Cador says you were hacked. I don't know. I know, not this time, Benedict. Not this time. I have been on a number of occasions, but not this time. I think it has something to do with the files that were put into this iPad last night. For some reason, the iPad's just not reading them this morning. And you know what? Watch this. I'm keeping my pinkies crossed because the next file that I'm about to play is, I guess you might say, our main feature this morning. And it has to do with the segment we played yesterday, or part of the segment we did yesterday, because the full segment was about an hour long, but we had a conversation with a lady named Daisy Hazard, and Daisy is the public relations officer for the Public Workers Union. From what I've been hearing and seeing, there's a lot of resentment out there about the Prime Minister's recent comment about the need for public servants to perform their roles without fear or favor, especially fear of the political directorate. A lot of people were amazed to hear those words coming out of the PM's mouth. At a media conference last week, Public Workers Union expressed their views on the matter and also appeared on yesterday's program to share those views. Well, I was hoping, or I'm hoping, that when we fire up this one, it's actually going to play. Before I do that, Ryan says, sure, right, John. Gigi, ask your agronomist how to get soursop, the fruit, for me. Ryan, okay. And Fitzroy says, George, we had the agro industry. Yeah, I understand back in the days of the Revo, man, you people did all kinds. I wasn't here, that's why I'm saying you people, but I understand that these folks did a lot with agricultural products. And you know what? Was it yesterday? Recently I mentioned that I was optimistic that eventually eyes would start opening up and people would start to recognize the importance and the value of agriculture. You know, it's the one thing I think we can cling to with some degree of certainty. And hopefully, I'm just positive that people will start gravitating to agriculture, and that not just for the sake of making money, but for our own good health. You know, we're so quick to import stuff and buy the foreign stuff. Folks, if you knew the quantity of junk that goes into that stuff, tastes good, looks good, but what is it doing to your body, our bodies? Yeah, I'm trying to eat more fruit and more vegetables and so on. Okay, Ryan says here, I like Daisy's level-headed presentation. Well, Ryan, I'll tell you what, let me, hold on a sec here now, hold on a sec, where's Daisy? Let me pull Miss Daisy up, and please, as I touch this thing here, just pray to God that it plays, because if not, it's only, what, 22 minutes after the hour? We're into the program 22 minutes now. And I'll tell you, with no GIS, none of our introductory features this morning, if we don't have a main feature, you guys are going to have to keep me busy for the next 38 minutes or so, 37 minutes or so from now. So let's fire it up and see if it works.
Yes.
Daisy, I saw a comment that you made at that meeting, post-cabinet, not post-cabinet, the conference that you guys had. Were you surprised by the public reaction to the statements that were made by the Prime Minister? This is all over social media.
Good morning, George, and thank you very much for having me on this morning. And I also want to extend those greetings to our listeners and viewers. I thank you for having me on. George, I must say that I was heartened by the response from viewers and listeners and on social media. And at the same time, some of those comments made me very, very sad. Because while the debacle that we're faced with in the phone gate or the phone scandal, as you may wish to call it, seem to have three responsible parties. A lot of that blame, the bulk of that blame, seemed to have been shifted onto the back of public servants. And there seem to be a lot of proponents out there who's very quick to embrace that. And, that is saddening, because the facts and the evidence, they're there, they're clear. But also, we've had a very swift and very positive responses from the public defending public workers. And that also is very, very heartening to us.
It was strange because there are so many examples where the words of the Prime Minister just don't gel with reality. And I think the way you put it in your media conference was that, just ask the people who have felt that wrath. Where are they today?
Exactly.
Yeah?
Where are these people today? I mean, we've heard the Prime Minister's comments, we've heard his statements, and unfortunately, we've heard statements similar to those in the past. Whenever there is an issue, whenever there seem to be anomalies in the system, whenever government does not seem to be doing what it ought to do or to provide, there's always that very quick blame shifted onto the backs of poor and unsuspecting public servants. And the question that I ask is, if we are to believe the Prime Minister's statements that public servants are above victimization and that they can conduct their job without fear or favor, we simply need to do the roll call of history. And perhaps we can start with Richard Duncan.
Go ahead.
And we can come down today to persons like Paul Graham, who is listening in today actually from Accra, Ghana.
Okay.
These persons out there working for other governments and countries like Paul is doing. These persons are out there building empires in our corporate world like Richard Duncan is doing. They're not with government service. And it's not because they've passed the age of retirement. It is because for one reason or the other, they have been forced out of or have chosen to leave the public service because of one reason or the other. And it's not because they don't want to give service to Grenada or to the public service. So again, where are they?
You mentioned to me that you're pretty new to the Public Workers Union. You've been around there for, what, a year or so?
No, I've just only gotten into executive level this year, past elections in March of this year, yes.
All right. But were you a public servant before?
I have been a public servant. In fact, all of my life, my working life has been in service to Grenada. I started as a teacher at the tender age of 18. I spent about 14 years in the classroom, and I moved into the active public service about 16 years ago. So I have that experience from the teaching service and also from the direct civil service.
You've been around the block, okay.
I have been around the block.
All right. Now, tell me, during that tenure with the public service, tell me about some of the things that you have seen which, again, show that what was being said about public servants ain't true.
You know, George and audience, our members are hurting. Our civil service right now is in agony. I mean, so many of our members go to work every day, and for one reason or the other, they're not able to put their skills, their talents, their competence to use for government and for nation building. Many people express to you so much frustration. Among ourselves, we may joke about it. We may even name the offices that they inhabit. We may even give it little names. But it's not funny. It is not funny when persons go out there every day and on their job, in their job, they are forced into depression by the circumstances of their job. We have members who have been falling sick. Very recently, someone my age, my coworker, came down with a very, very serious stroke. And on the last day that she left work, she said, I don't know if I can take this anymore. Because she feels useless in government service, although she's very competent and qualified and wants to work. She's not able to.
Would you say that civil servants, at least some of them, are afraid, just afraid to speak up?
You know, I think today as civil servants, sometimes we think about our job, and we think about the bottom line, and we think about our responsibilities and commitments to our families, and perhaps where we need to be fearless and where we need to be bold-faced and where we need to speak up. We may be reticent to do so. And I don't think that one could blame the civil servant. Because at the end of the day, we all want to live, we all have to live, we all have our responsibilities to our homes.
Got to feed your mouth.
Yep. And you know, am I going to compromise my ethics? Am I going to compromise what I believe in, the principles that I stand for? But how do I balance that vis-a-vis the practical realities of everyday life? How do I balance that? And so sometimes you may just find that you have to err on the side of caution and be silent where you'd like to speak.
And that, I imagine, would be having quite an impact on the morale of staff.
I would say that, you know, morale is down. In fact, I was reading an article by Dennis Pisa in the Barbados today, and the subtext of the article, the headline of the article is violence against unions and violence against civil service. And it speaks about the stresses, and it speaks about the demoralizing things that public servants have to face every day, not just in Grenada, but throughout our region and perhaps the world. And yes, we are a hurting civil service to a large extent. Our members are in pain. And every time there is an attack or a perceived attack or something comes out from the government side that seems to be an attack, we shudder. And we wonder how an employer, you know, can do such a thing. Because the Fortune 500 companies, they don't do that. They expend vast resources in motivating and uplifting their staff, because you understand that you can only get productivity and you can only get good results where your human capacity is so driven to provide that. A paycheck alone doesn't do it, especially the pitiful paychecks that we work for. And so these these Fortune 500 companies, these big companies, even right here in Grenada, our local companies understand that you have to reward workers, you have to incentivize them, you have to lift them up, you have to motivate them. And certainly, motivating your workers cannot be that every couple weeks or months, there is an attack by the very persons who are supposed to be building workers up. It goes against the principle of productivity. And so it's very, very sad.
Now, I know that you guys had a press conference this week, and you were very vocal about this. How does your union intend to address this? I mean, you know, you consider the press conference, say anything you want.
Yes.
Has to go one step further.
Yes. Well, you know, George, our union is 88 years old and 88 years strong. And the Public Service Union of Grenada is strong and will be forever strong. And one of the reasons why I got involved actively in trade unionism is because I realized that there is a need for us at union level to encourage and to motivate our members, to mobilize them, to let them know that there is a union that is out there, that is strong, and is prepared to stand with them and for them and to defend their rights. So I believe that as union, we have to dialogue with government, and we have to sit down with our government and say, this is enough. There is a time to stop. It has gone on far enough. We are on the same team as you are, nation-building team, and so therefore your public utterances, you know, sometimes, as in this case, certainly goes against that. So we need to sit and dialogue with government. We need to speak with government so that government understands that we are on the same page and they ought to be on the same page. But more so, as a public service union, we have a responsibility to go out there to help our members, to serve our members, to engage with them far more than I think that we've been doing. And this is the reason why I'm sitting here today as public relations officer of the union.
I want to touch on two things here. One, you said you have to dialogue with government, and that's encouraging. But Daisy, to tell you the honest truth, I mean, I've been doing this program. I'm into my 15th year of doing this program. And I have heard of unions dialoguing and dialoguing and dialoguing and dialoguing with government, okay? How do you know when you get to the point where you have to say, hey, enough talk? What's that point?
Well, I think, you know, our service is beleaguered. And perhaps we are at this point where we say that's enough. But again, we have to balance it out with the practical realities. Because there is never a time when, no matter how tired we are, that we can cease to dialogue with government. That's our responsibility as union. But so there's never a time that we can stop that dialogue. But I believe there is a time when we have to engage and empower our membership, when we have to have our membership know what their rights are as civil servants, what their responsibilities are, and to encourage them to carry out their responsibilities with due care so that they can exercise their rights when they need to as well, with vigilance.
Some time ago, you guys did put your foot down and you took to the streets en masse, didn't you?
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
Did that make a difference?
Well, you know, George, I want to commend every single civil servant who came out in the streets in the hot sun and stood up for their union. I want to commend every civil servant who stayed away from the job. I want to commend all those civil servants who are out there, and teachers as well, who are still doing work to rule. We're still going that route. And I believe that while we did have to go back to work, I believe that we showed government that we are prepared to bite the bullet. And even now, every day our civil servants say to us, we are prepared to make the sacrifice. Because we know we've gotten to the point where we cannot just sit down and do nothing or be passive. So yes, every day our members tell us, union is strong, we are behind you, and we are prepared to make that sacrifice.
You know, one of the things that, you know that unions have come under fire.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay? But to the credit of unions, I did notice that, yes, you guys put your foot down and took to the streets in large numbers some time ago. But after that, you were willing to go back to the negotiating table. And I think that demonstrated goodwill. Mm-hmm. Agreed?
Yes, it did, definitely.
Okay. And you would do it again?
If we have to, if we are so pushed, yes, we would have to.
See, okay, that's going to put a different face on trade unionism, because trade unions, they've come under fire. They've come under fire. Just like governments have to be blamed, trade unions have to be blamed in some ways. Here's a note. Peter Bishop. Peter, I hope you took your time to write this, because it just came in. I haven't pre-read it, so I'm going to give it a shot. Peter says, Richard Duncan had mortgage but stood and fought for his rights. Gemma Bain Thomas has a mortgage, but she stood up and won against government. Too many of our civil servants are cowards and not prepared to fight for their rights when it's infringed. In my humble opinion, lots of our civil servants appear not to know their rights and allow politicians to run over them. My question is, how is it this phone gate was allowed to go on for so long and it was not discovered by our civil servants? Just asking.
Which question would you like me to answer, George?
How is it that phone gate was allowed to go on for so long and it was not discovered by civil servants?
Well, thank you, Peter Bishop, for your comment and for your question. And by your question, I am taking it that you presume that the phone gate or the excesses of phone use, especially data, went on for so long without being flagged by the civil servant. We don't know that as we sit here today. That has not been presented to us in the media.
Say that again.
I am saying that he's going on the presumption that it has went on for so long without the civil service or a civil servant flagging it. And I'm saying that's a presumption. We have not been presented with that information or that evidence.
Fair enough. Fair enough. But in light of our track record, you can understand why there are people in the public who may think that.
If I may add to that a little bit, George, I've been having discussions with PSs and with persons at the level of Ministry of Finance and even at Ministry of Works. I've had those discussions over the week to try to understand what has happened and how our phone packages with government works. And one of the things that we've found is that there has been a decentralization of accounting for phone use. So in the past, each ministry accounted for the use of phones from their ministry. That has been placed into one ministry, Ministry of Works. So all of the phones, whether it is schools, whether it is civil servants out there, all of civil service phone use has been placed, routed through the Ministry of Works under public utilities. So whereas before it might have been going to, education is managing their accounts and health is doing the same, and so an SAO can look from month to month and see anomalies or differences, this is not the case now. And so that may be in part responsible for also varying level of the service, enjoy different packages. The average civil servant gets a package of $40 per month from government. I can tell you, George, it doesn't go very far. We use our own personal. I use my own personal phone to do government's work. But when your package is expired, it's done. There's no more for the month. And so the majority of the use of the phones and what has escalated that bill, as far as we can tell, is through data use and not necessarily cell phone use. Now, that might be a harder thing to manage and to track.
Adriano Davis says, there are times when things are flagged, but they are advised that it should be left alone.
George, civil servants can give advice. A prominent secretary, an SAO in a ministry, we can give advice. And I'm certain that civil servants try as far as they can to carry out their jobs in a manner that they ought to. But that is what we can do, give advice.
Take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it.
A couple more comments here. Fitzroy Adams says, Daisy, I understand what you're saying about dialogue with government, but are you guys getting results?
George, we have a new executive in place. We had elections in March. We took office in April. And I can tell you that right now the Public Workers Union of Grenada has a very strong executive, has a very competent, multi-talented, multifaceted bunch of men and women who are committed. Many of us are very new. We've never been involved in trade unionism before, but we came forward because we recognized that labor faced a challenge such as we've never seen before. And so it was incumbent upon us not to stand behind in the sidelines and call out to our leaders and ask, what are you doing? But to join the fray, to get into the trenches and do the work. And so we are prepared to do the work. We are working behind the scenes. We are working behind the sidelines, getting it done.
Daisy, you said We are prepared to do the work. We are prepared to do it. Where have I heard that before? Where have I heard that before?
Before every time, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
okay. Somebody named Richard Darren Belgrave says, "Hey, all you look my teacher?" You said you were a teacher, right?
I was a teacher, yes. I am a teacher. Once a teacher, always a teacher.
Ian Thomas says $40 a month for employed public servants, but $28,000 for unemployed political mouthpiece? Huh.
Huh.
They're hard hitting.
Yes.
Kipling Francis, did you say Ministry of Works under Minister Bowen? Whoa. Putting cat to watchman cheese. This name may be familiar to you. Somebody named Brian Grimes.
Yes, absolutely familiar.
Yeah. How are you, Mr. Grimes? Long time no see. Mr. Grimes says, "Whoa, Sister Daisy, your dialogue is both sobering and refreshing."
Thank you, Grimes. Thank you so much.
Okay. Do you think that this phone gate is going to bring about some major changes in the accounting?
I believe so. I mean, government has admitted to embarrassment. And I think that in large part, that embarrassment has caused the shifting of so much of the blame onto the back of public servants. But coming out of this, it is incumbent upon government and upon civil service to ensure that something like this is not repeated. And so certainly it must bring about, and we in the public service, we are calling for policies that would ensure that this does not occur again.
Chris Riggs, you know that guy?
Yes, certainly, theater practitioner.
My goodness.
Leading
Chris,
playwright.
Chris, I did not know you were still alive.
Good
boy.
morning, Chris.
Good to see you, Chris. Chris says, you said there was, or there has been, a decentralization. Did you mean centralization?
Sorry, yes, centralization. I think even while I was saying the words, my mind registered that it was the wrong way around. So there has been a centralization, whereas in the past it was decentralized and segregated, you know, to different ministries.
Why do you think I have Chris here today?
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for pointing that out.
Let's see here. Ricardo Darren Belgrave said,
That's my student again.
It's good to see you, new faces and new. It's good to see new faces and new perspectives. And Dennis Clark says, yes, Chris, she meant centralization. There's a note here from Adriano Davis. He says, even in volunteering for government, you have to sometimes use your own resources to get the task done.
Yes.
I've heard a lot of that too.
Yes.
Yeah?
Absolutely.
All right, Daisy. All right. I hope you guys are going to stay on this. And I'm looking forward to hearing what the other unions have to say. I'm also a little bit concerned. You know, I try to get the churches on here today. No luck.
You know, George, the churches seem to be very selective in their preaching. That's my opinion. That's my observation.
Well, it's not only yours. Don't go flapping your hat. You're not the only person
You know,
who feels that way.
we heard them urging civil servants and teachers to return to the classroom last year during our strike action. And then, you know, later on when they were called upon to speak again, when civil servants' pay was docked, they said, no, the church can't get involved. And I mean, if that isn't blatant hypocrisy and shirking of responsibility, I don't know what is. So I hope they will speak out. They ought to.
I am very hopeful that I will get to hear from the business community, the chamber.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm expecting them here next week. Okay. Bob Marishow says, Daisy, what's the function of the audit department? What checks and balances are in place to catch anomalies like excessive spending of government finances?
You know, you're asking me very direct questions. I work at Ministry of
They are
Education.
asking you very direct questions.
And I wish I could answer all of your questions as directly as you have. But certainly there are checks and balances within the audit department, you know, to ensure that government spending is within bounds. And the phone situation has thrown up some issues that perhaps needs looking into. And so where there are checks and balances that need to be put into place to ensure that something like this does not happen again, government and civil service ought to act to redress those quickly.
Somebody called, these names, Ambitious James.
Oh.
Ambitious James says, how do we deal with low productivity in the service?
You know, that's a good question. And again, it goes back to how responsible and committed do our members feel. As you know, a union, we call on our members to be responsible in the functions, in carrying out the functions of their duties. But we also call on government and employer to ensure that your staff is motivated to work.
Betty Ann Court says, Miss Daisy, it's Miss Hazard. Hazard?
Yes.
Oh, how do you pronounce it?
Hazard.
Hazard.
Yes, hazard for that matter.
Miss Daisy. Let's stick with Miss Daisy. It's easier for me. Okay. Betty Ann Court says, Miss Daisy, having dialogue is a good start, and practice to productivity in building our nation.
Okay.
Is that one of the missions of your union? You know, people have been crying out about productivity in the civil service. I mean, Daisy, sometimes it's painful. Anytime I have to pick up my phone and call a government office, I get this thing in my chest. They answer the phone. Hello, this is so-and-so office. Yes, may I speak to Daisy Hazard, please? You want to talk to her? Hell no. Why the hell am I calling if I don't want to talk to her? You know, that kind of thing, Daisy. Productivity. Okay. All right. Yes, I would like to speak to her. Hold on. Person comes back. She gone on lunch. Okay. When do you expect her back? I don't know. Okay. This is what I'm trying to find out. Is there somebody else who can help me? Well, I don't know now. Daisy, you're laughing, but it's a reality we have to deal with on a daily basis.
Yes, George. It is a reality, and I think both government and union, the employer and union, has to take some responsibility for that. And certainly union, works with our workers to ensure that they are as professional as they can be. But George, I want to ask a question here this morning. How many of our frontline service members, your persons who answer the PBX, for instance, ask the question, have they ever received training from the employer? Have they ever? Has any one of them? I have been with the public service for how many years? Whatever training I have received, it has not been directly from government.
Yeah. All right. The questions are coming in fast and furious. Sharon Roberts says, this is not entirely true. Bishop Harvey spoke out about the docking of teachers' pay.
Okay, maybe I missed it.
Okay. Lydia James says, Conference of Churches? I think it's Conference of Hypocrites. Ernesto says, Mr. PM, we in the diaspora are very much in touch with what's happening at home. And I think that's something the Prime Minister forgets.
You know, George, I have a lot of family in the diaspora, and many times things that are happening in Grenada, they are the ones who have to point it out to me. They are in touch. They are locked into Grenada.
Fitzroy Adams says, Daisy, I live in the USA. I am involved in unions. We never call off a strike while negotiations are taking place.
I do agree. I certainly agree.
Ernesto Jose says, first I want to congratulate Junior George for asking the PM the phone gate questions, which brings out the true colors of the PM and his behaviors when he is in the diaspora. Adriano Davis says, firing from the hip, go girl. Simeon McVeigh says, amen, 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 Daisy.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to try. How do you pronounce SH''DWNA? Shadina?
Shadina. Yeah, it sounds like Shadina.
Cinnamon Brookersfield says, the church also urged the return to the negotiating table when the momentum was building towards shutting down the country in the pension and gratuity fight. The unions listened to the church. In hindsight, a big mistake.
Yes, absolutely.
The negotiations should have remained on the streets. So says Shadina. Thank you, Shadina. Marcel Belmar says public officers must government cell phones when proceeding on vacation. What is the government's policy with regards to ministers and government cell phones? Can government produce the cabinet's conclusion number that speaks to the use of government cell phones by government ministers? Is there such a...
You know, George, it's very curious that, as I said, I spoke with a number of civil servants at the level of PS and SAO, and they were able to concretely tell me the provisions and the policies guiding cell phone use by workers, not so much the higher echelons of government, not so much the ministers.
Ricardo Barron Belgrave says, I strongly believe that all service is a calling. Not all are cut out to do it. A level of responsibility is important. Brian Grimes says, there is a Hello, Brian. You're active this morning. Brian says there is a proliferation of untrained demanding workers in the public service now. Let's remember this. And that's been told to me before, that when you get these people answering these phones who don't have a clue.
You know, George, and I want to recognize this morning the plight of the Imani. The plight of the Imani workers in Grenada really does concern me, because I see them as an educated bunch of young persons in Grenada who has been made an underclass in the civil service. And yes, they work many times without training, and a lot of them sit at our frontline offices answering the phones.
Shadina says, I'm told Bishop Harvey spoke out about the docking of salaries to his congregation. In my opinion, he should have gone public. If he did, I'm not aware. Ricardo Barron Belgrave says there are not many mechanisms in place for personal, professional development in the country. That's the point you're trying to make.
In the public service especially.
Yeah. And Tyrone Wilson says, do you think contract work is affecting the union's ability to be effective?
You know, George, the union is under siege and attack on many, many fronts, and never more than by the employer. And yes, we see a government that by and large, the civil service, our membership is being eroded by so many anomalies. We have honest, established workers, workers with no letters, workers who are employed, but they don't even know the terms and conditions. So where before it was straightforward, you serve a probationary period, as soon as a vacancy becomes available, you move into it. Now we have permanent positions vacant. Imani's workers are filling it. I wish that these young people would be given those permanent spots, but somehow government is not so minded.
Arthur Langai.
Is that a frequent
Arthur
customer?
Langai says the people should stop going to church, and then they will have to go out of business. Adriano Davis says the church needs to be more involved and protective when it comes to the issues affecting public workers. Education of the general public is also a task they should take up.
Absolutely. You know, the churches, I know that the Council of Churches do part of the framework, you know, is not to get involved politically and not to interfere at all in the functioning of the state. But where you wade into the waters and you urge your civil service to go back to work, and then something negative comes out of that, I believe that you had a responsibility because you chose to act.
Bob Marichaux says, my advice to Daisy and the PWU is to sit down with the government and make attempts to modernize the civil service.
Again?
How many times are we going through this modernization process?
Alrighty, folks, that's it. Just remember that that was just an excerpt from yesterday's session. We went for about an hour or so, and I think you just heard only about just about half of it. All right? Now, there are some comments out there I want to share with you. First of all, Ryan says, Grenada's public workers are asking for their rights and need the support of fellow citizens of our Grenada. So says Ryan. Good morning, Kipling. Margaret Francis says, good morning. Like it or not, public workers workers have to shoulder some of the responsibility for that. They are guardians of the public purse and have to ensure that the rules are upheld. The reason why people like Richard and Paul and others suffered is because every public servant chose to CYA instead of standing together and saying no. It is easy to break one, but extremely difficult to break hundreds banding together. She goes on to say, so sorry, but not feeling generous towards public workers who are now crying foul. Okay, Mags? Good morning, Dennis. Kishan Brathwaite says, the civil service is too big. The society has become programmed to produce civil servants, not independent thinkers. We need a well-paid but smaller number of civil servants. The mass of civil servants needs to rethink, let me read that again. The mass of civil servants need to think about making a career outside of the public service field. Ryan responds to Margaret here by saying, Margaret, CYA is an international phenomenon with suffering employees in human resources. From my experience, it is impotent to assist the employee. Kishan Brathwaite says, where is the mentorship and succession program in the civil service to ensure smooth operations? If it is there, how active is it? Ryan says, yes, GG. There comes a time when an employee can't play possum anymore. Yeah. He also says to Daisy, telephone PBX answering folks in Grenada seem untrained. Boy, that has been an issue for a long time. Folks, I can't believe we made it through the hour. See, whenever I've been up a creek, how many times have you seen this happen? Whenever George is up a creek, he turns to Almighty God, and he carries him through. I thought we were going to wrap this up at about 9:30 this morning. Well, that was not the case, my dear friends. That was not the case. Quick break, come back, wrap it up this time.
Studying too hard about back-to-school expenses? Co-op Bank is making back to school as easy as 1, 2, 3. Enjoy competitive interest rates, affordable monthly payments, speedy decisions on applications. Come in and apply today.
GRENLEC Community Partnership Initiative.
This is not the first time that GRENLEC, through the GCPI, has responded positively to TAMCC, and we are always appreciative for the support. TAMCC, like the GCPI, is geared to service the community. As a college, we cannot accomplish our mission of fostering Grenada's development through education without meaningful partnerships from other community members. GRENLEC has been a leader in this regard.
GRENLEC, energizing our community.
All right. Time to go, folks. Parting word from the Holy Scriptures. The book of James, chapter 1, verses 19 to 24. My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Because human anger does not produce the righteousness that God desires. Therefore, get rid of all moral filth and the evil that is so prevalent, and humbly accept the word planted in you, which can save you. Do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says. Anyone who listens to the word but does not do what it says is like someone who looks at his face in a mirror and, after looking at himself, goes away and immediately forgets what he looks like. James 1:19-24. Thank you, Ryan. Ryan says, GJ, you never up a creek without a paddle. When you have us, your loyal listeners, on your side. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Jorge Murillo Yepes said, do not quit your day job, George. As a sound engineer, you would starve. Jorge, I don't know if you were with us yesterday, but I did explain that we have been having some difficulties, and we do hope that by the end of this week, those would be resolved. Thank you so much. Programs, that's going to do it. Thanks a lot for joining us. God bless you.